You may come forward. Senator, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Kelly Hancock.
Here, let me come over here to the mic closer.
I, Kelly Hancock.
Do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute.
Do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute.
The duties of the office of President Pro Tempore.
The duties of the office of President Pro Tempore.
Of the Senate of the State of Texas.
Of the Senate of the State of Texas.
And I will, to the best of my ability.
And I will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution and the laws of the United States.
The Constitution and the laws of the United States.
And this state.
And this state.
This is the easy part, so help me God.
So help me God.
Members, may I present to you the President Pro Tempore of the 88th session, the Honorable Kelly Hancock.
Love you.
Back on the team.
Right there. Yeah, thank you all. Thank you for those that have been here. I know it's been a long day. I want to specifically thank my escort committee. I know, Senator Birdwell, you were packing, so I felt safe on doing that. And the wonderful speeches. I think it does show what we have here in the Texas Senate that you heard from bipartisan group. And similar things could be said about every member here. Every member here is special in different ways. So I'm very thankful for the speeches, but more importantly for the deep friendships that we hold as a Senate body. This is a very, very unique place, and I love its history. And I love the future that we have for it. And I guess lastly, but really most of all, I want to thank my wife and my family. Those of us that serve know the sacrifices that take place. You see, my kids were young when I started. And Robin dealt with things while I was here. And yeah, I ran home, but a lot of times I ran home after things were taking place. She is my rock. Next to God. It's close. And we do deeply love one another. We enjoy spending time together. And she literally has taken care of me. You see, I wasn't sure I would be here in this place. Even last session. I suffered with kidney failure for 30 years, as you heard. They didn't say 30 years, but yeah, 31 years old. Chloe had just been born, a couple of months old. Had a serious bout where I lost 50% very quickly. After several tests, biopsies and so forth, and they came back and said that I had a very, very rare disease that could take my kidneys. In 2 days, 2 months, 2 years, God gave me 31. Several sessions ago, I was told it would be 1 or 2 years before I was on dialysis. God gave me 6. And then literally, I wouldn't be here today if God hadn't given me a family that was willing to donate their kidney so that I may be here. And then God did another thing. He gave me a son-in-law that, no, I didn't test his blood type before I said yes, he could marry my daughter. But it turns out of even all of my siblings and all of my family, the doctor said he was a better match than anybody else. And he voluntarily gave up one of his so that I could have 3. Now, 2 of them don't work, but I just need one. He just needs one. But more importantly, God gave me a son-in-law that believes and trusts in our Father and was willing to sacrifice and serve in a way that I will tell you during the interview, when we did an interview with the TV, he said, well, I didn't do anything that he wouldn't do. We didn't talk about that. Whitmire, for you, you got it, baby. I mean, you can have the ones that don't work, just to be clear. But he embodied the type of service that we really talk about. And I was so disappointed as I was preparing to be here, and I know we all need to go. But as we look at service, which is why we all started down this path, it's said that service is intangible. And I look at this state, and I know personally, as a recipient of someone else's organ, that they're wrong. Now, it doesn't surprise Lieutenant Governor Pachter that I would call somebody wrong that actually wrote dictionary definitions. But it is tangible. And we see it in the state of Texas. We see that your service, our service, has made tangible changes in this state. But just as importantly, would you agree with me, colleagues, that it changes us? That they are tangible. We take away something every time we do good for others. So it is tangible for certain. And where did this service start? Well, for me, it started when Chloe was a baby. You see, in the state of Texas, your street address decides where your kid is going to school. So we had a baby at home, and we were a young couple. Couldn't afford to move again, couldn't afford private school. And so I decided, I think it was Senator Whitmire, Senator Nichols that may have said it, I'm very much a forward thinker, and I'm like, all right, I got 5 years to make an impact here. Served on the school board 13 years. About the time I was deciding to get off, just felt like God was telling me somebody else needs to lead. You've led. You need to move on. Well, unfortunately, at that time, we had an open seat, a seat that was going to come open in the Texas House. And I made the mistake of having lunch with a bunch of businessmen from our community who had asked me to run for the Texas House. Yeah, I just started a business. Certainly, this is not what God had in mind. Came home after that lunch. Robin's in the kitchen. And she asked, what was it about? And I said, well, they want me to run for the Texas House. Yeah, we weren't making money. Yeah, I left a nice job. And she said, well, what's God say? You got to hate that when that happens. And you better have something. But you can't make it up. And so God laid Ephesians 5:15 and 16 on my heart. It says, be as the wise, not as the unwise, making the most of every opportunity, for the days are evil. And we simply decided together that this was an opportunity that God had brought about, and we need to be obedient. As stupid as it sounded for a young couple with a new business that was not making money to run for public office and spend time away. But God blessed that time, and I served in the House for 6 years. Then Governor Perry, in redistricting, had asked me to run for the Texas Senate. And I had the privilege to joining this body in this place, which I love because it's different. And the history tells us it's different. See, I love Texas history. I love the fact that we can go back and see that this structure here was built in 1888, started in 1882. The first pro tem selected In 1846, right after we joined the Union, there's significance to this place. There are times you stand in awe of just being here if you just look around and appreciate it. And when you can't, it's time to go home. But I read about a man, George T. Ruby, Senator George T. Ruby, 1869. Senator West, Senator Miles, the very first African American ever elected to the Texas Senate. And it's not surprisingly, he was selected, and everybody considered him an incredible radical. Sarah Miles, I know you can't imagine that. But he came into the Senate and had a very successful legislative career. And what was written about him in history is that he was a man of diplomacy and a man of tact. Wouldn't you say that describes the Senate? On most days. A place of diplomacy and tact. And what's that diplomacy and tact got us? Success is what it's got us. As a start, and more importantly, the hand of God has allowed Texas to be, at this point in time when we serve, when we're starting a new session, to be in a position that we have one of the largest population growths in the state of Texas. We have more Fortune 500 companies headquartered here than any other state. We're the number one job creator in the state of Texas. Our oil and gas production is number one in the country. And our electric generation is number one in the country as well, generating more electricity than both California and New York combined. You see, those that came before us have done well. And now it's our turn. And we have 140 days. Which reminds me that we are to make the most of every opportunity. But one of the things in this verse that I'd always forget, I never understood how it ended in the days of evil. But then I've learned through studying this over and over, the days are evil when we don't take the most of every opportunity. And then Scripture tells us how to do that. It tells us we're to serve with, first, faithfulness. Faithfulness to God, trusting in Him for the wisdom to do our jobs. Self-control. Self-control for me is controlling my ego, my pride, my selfishness, allowing God to lead and not my own. Patience. It doesn't always happen in a day. Legislation is a process. Balanced billing, Senator Whitmire, 10 years. Spending cap, which we passed last session. I carried it in the House, carried it here. It wasn't until the fourth session that we established a new spending cap with population and inflation, allowing us to give money back to those that gave it to the state if we have excess. Goodness. That the things we do should be out of the goodness of our heart, but we have no goodness in our heart apart from God and apart from our faith, which puts our reliance back on God Himself. Gentleness. I am not known as a compassionate guy. I have to remember gentleness is important for us to work together, to do it in a gentle way. I forget that at times. Joy. This is a wonderful privilege to serve here. But sometimes we get caught up in the mess that we forget the joy of serving here. Yes, Senator Patrick, we had a great time last night. It was joyful. Let that carry through this session. Let's find times of joyfulness. Kindness. Many times it's difficult here to treat one another with kindness. But I believe success that we've achieved through diplomacy and tact, kindness is necessary and important. Peace. My kids had asked me how I slept last night. You see, I don't like this stuff. If you heard a little bit, the background of what you heard is I like doing things and I like fixing things. And yes, I consider myself a little bit of a workaholic, but I don't like necessarily being out front. Even when we were lining up behind the escort committee, I was lining up like behind the escort committee. But I slept well. I slept with peace. And that is because of my faith. Because I know I'm not in control. But my God is. And I rest peacefully in that. May you find your peace this session. They can be difficult. Trust me. Trust in something that you can find peace in. And most importantly, and I thought it was interesting that Scott, who leads our Bible study, prayed about loving one another. Because the last that I will leave you with is the most important of all. That we love one another. That we love all Texans, not just our party. We can love the process. Because truly, as my parents have recently shown me, both parents in memory care with dementia, my mom's on hospice. My dad can't remember my mom's name. Not sure if he knows that he's even married to her. But they will lay in bed, resting, holding hands. Because colleagues, at the end of the day, what we do here, if we can't walk away loving one another and working together, at the end of the day, it means nothing. So as we start these 140 days, my friends, may remember that we love one another as we accomplish and make the most of every opportunity that lies before us. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. I'm very, very honored. I love this place. I love what we do here. Thank you.